The following story contains realistically harsh language, including racial epithets and suggested sexual activity.
Graphic Audio presents DC Comics Batman Dead White by John Shirley. Batman and all related names, characters, and elements are trademarks of DC Comics. Copyright 2009, DC Comics. Batman created by Bob Kane. Narrated by Richard Rowan. With performances by Thomas Penny, James Konachek, Scott McCormick, Terrence Aselford, Colleen Delaney, James Lewis, Eric Messner, Danny Gavigan, Stephen Carpenter, Bruce Allen Rauscher, David Coyne, Casey Platt, Chris Rowan, Andy Clements, Tim Getman, Nanette Savard, Christopher Graybill, Ken Jackson, Michael John Casey, Dylan Lynch, Joe Brack, Tony Nam, Michael Raplogel, Jonathan Watkins, Michael Glenn, Lily Beacon, Elizabeth Jernigan, Margie Tompros, Johan Detweiler, and Mort Shelby. Trask was a little nervous about this delivery as he turned into the deserted warehouse district.
That's the new drop over there, isn't it? It's hard to tell from here in the dark. All the streetlights shot out. John Simpson, corner of Courtney and Simpson, he said. What did he say? Rankin's Fish Depot by the river? There it is. Rankin's Fish. Shit. Sign so old you can hardly read it. The fog's not helping much either. Damn. There's that feeling again. Like somebody's watching me. Watching from up high somewhere. Skeeve might have put some dude on the rooftop with a rifle, but I can't see anybody up there. Wait, what was that? No. No. Jumpy, seeing shit. Let's see, 2:53 a.m. Skeeve ought to be out here, goddammit. But I don't see him. Bastard. He probably got a speed run on. White Eyes told him not to do the booth anymore himself. He don't listen to White Eyes. He's going to find himself out in the country, spread-eagled under one of those harrow machines, like Harney. I didn't mind Harney's screaming so much. It was the whining before he started screaming. That's what gets on your nerves.
Who you talking to?
Oh, God! Jeez, Skeeve! You nearly made me set my crotch on fire. Why you sneak up on me like that?
What you so nervous about, Trask? You got a tail on you? A tail following you? Is that right?
I haven't seen anybody, Skeeve. Exactly.
You know what you mean exactly? You don't say exactly like you mean exactly. Some people say exactly, but they don't mean exactly like they mean exactly. What the hell you mean by that?
All right, chill, Skeeve. I just had a feeling, that's all. Nerves. Talking to myself relaxes me. Oh, hey, you got a guy on that roof over there?
What? Where? Which roof? Where? What? That roof there? What? That one there?
Yeah, I thought I saw somebody just now.
No. Fuck no. Oh, shit. Maybe it's the Bat, man.
The Batman?
No, man. The Bat. It could be him. He hammered down on Joe Bliney last night. Joe's whole crew. Boom. Slammed the mush.
The Bat killed him?
They alive. They just busted up. I don't know how the cops can take them in when they find them tied up to this stuff with those black ropes and that bat-shaped deal on them. I mean, what's that? Proof? Oh, but it's good enough for that bitch DA. And they went down, man. They all in the city can. Gonna go to the joint for sure. And for why? Because of the Bat. Oh, you better get this damn ugly-ass truck of yours out of here.
No can do, Skeeve. White Eye says I deliver no matter what. The Bat comes, I'll be ready. And those other guys, Bliney's crew? I don't know. I think it's a put-up job. I think it's all just a bullshit story about the Bat. The cops are gassing people, maybe, to knock them out like something illegal. That's what I heard. And then they're saying the Bat done it. Come on. One guy taking out 5, more than 5? No. No man can do that. Not without guns. And he don't use guns. If he exists.
I seen him, man. You gonna call me a liar, are you? That it? I'm a damn liar, right? I'm just running my mouth here?
What? No. Skeeve, geez, put away the piece, man. Don't wave that gun. If a cop drives by that's not one of ours, sees you waving that 9er around.
I tell you, I saw the Bat myself about 1.5 years ago. A little less, just when he started showing up. Before I was working for the Brotherhood, we had a chop shop set up. 10 new cars in there waiting to be stripped. And the window explodes and down he comes like black lightning, man. Wham! 3 guys go down before the Bat even lands on the floor. 2 more in the next second. He moves so fast just like that. And his face, oh man, he ain't got a human face. He's some kind of genetic crossbreeding thing. You know, like a mutant. He's half animal. He's got Bat genes, I figure. And he's got this look in his eyes. Make your blood run cold, dude, and I don't ever want to see that again. I ran for my life, and I was like half a block away, and whack, he shoots something or throws something that hits me in the back of the head. Woke up cuffed to the wheel of one of those Jags. My lawyer got me off because there was a witness as I went down on the street instead of in there with the cars. But I tell you what, I don't ever want to see that Bat again. I know at least one guy died of a heart attack just looking in the Bat's face.
White Eye says we deliver, Skeeve. You gotta get your boys out here, unload the stuff.
No, man. You move it around to the loading dock. I'll tell him to get it in. But I ain't sticking around. Oh, no, the Bat's been hitting the alley for a while now. This whole part of town is tough. Those whores that come in on the ship, the ones that didn't die in the hold, they were supposed to work a good 3 years whoring for Venko. But the Bat kicks ass and the bodyguards lets the trim go. Bitches run off into the streets. Guess he don't care about enforcing the immigration laws. But you chain up a whore, it makes him mad. He busted some arms on Venko's boys when he found out they...
Skeeve. I'm gonna move the truck. Get your boys around back.
Sure. Oh, the Bat's out there. I can't stay for this. I can't stay here with the Bat out there.
Oh, man. I gotta tell White Eyes about Skeeve. He is out of his gourd on the shit. It stinks back here. So they really do ship fish through here, too, huh? It's a good cover. I mean, what cop wants to look close at a place smells this bad? So, who are these weasels with Skeeve? I don't know these guys. These guys down with White Eye, Skeeve?
Yeah, Trasky. This is Sancho, this is Tar, and this is Ronson. They're gonna move the shit out. I gotta go, man. My nerves can't take it. Just put the gear in there.
Wait. You don't even want to see the goods? I'm supposed to show you. You're supposed to say, yeah, that's the goods. mean, look here, the crate's not even nailed shut. Check it out.
Oh, looks like a damn machine gun. Or a cannon, or both.
Shotgun, machine gun. Auto shotgun, some call it. Oh, we got some other stuff you wouldn't believe. It's gonna be the cutting edge of the revolution against the legions of the Antichrist, man. Centrifugal gun. Now, where do you see that one? See, this one's loaded. I'm gonna have it right here in my hand, standing guard. And these things got a hell of a range and power. And I got this one loaded with flechette shells. That bat shows, I'll cut him in half.
You mentioned his name! God damn it! Don't say it! He'll know if you say his name. He'll hear it and he'll know when he'll come.
Trask could see the big tattooed guy Tar and Ronson, pale lean son of a bitch in his faggy earrings, both of them laughing at Skeeve without making a sound. That Sancho looked like he had that one cold expression and nothing else. That let's get this over so I can get my money look. Trask was tired of guys like him. A man needed something to believe in besides the next score, the next hit, the next drink, the next hoe. That's what White Eyes gave you.
Hurry up! Hurry, Ty! Come on, get that stuff inside. He could be watching us right now, man. He could be right there, right up there in the.
What are you looking at, Skeeve? Oh my God!
What the hell is that?
Holy!
He could have hit them before they ever saw him coming, but Batman had deliberately let the gun smugglers see him. The criminal nervous system tended to lock up at the sight of him, giving him the extra split second he needed to really take them down. It was good for the legend, too, spread the message of fear he was sending to the underworld. Batman had hit the pocket, as he thought of it. Maybe some would call it the zone, but it was deeper than that. It had taken more than a year to get that feeling, consistently, when he was out on a mission. First year he was still floundering, trying this and that, making mistakes. Now, he was getting his groove. Batman could feel the kinetic energy passing through his gauntleted fists into his adversaries, knocking them into unconsciousness as definitely as a light switch flicks a room into darkness. No room for mistakes. The places he trained in the Far East hadn't countenanced mistakes. When you've got perfect presence, the right flow of chi, complete fusion of attention with action, there's no excuse for mistakes. So his teachers had said. But he made them anyway until he started to feel in the pocket. That internalized knowledge, intelligence in motion, like a cellist hitting the bass note at just the right moment in the symphony, the dark symphony that was the Gotham night. This would go right, unless. There was always an unless. He knew that, too. There was always an X factor. His combat choreography was at best just probability.
Fuck this!
The chunky, balding overseer of the operation was running for it. Batman knew him. Lon, the Skeeve Skevin, two-time loser for grand theft, total of 9 years in state pen behind him, rumored to have been a member of the Ku Klux Klan in Alabama before coming to Gotham City. Batman was also aware of the swiveling muzzle of that big, almost cannon-like gun in the gangly red-haired man's hands, and already sidestepping as the man pulled the trigger. Batman was too close to catch the shotgun's spread effect, but flechette rounds tore through one side of his cape, 2 flechettes razoring across his lightly armored upper right arm, a double streak of cold instead of pain for now. The pain would come later, but he was used to that. Pain was as much a part of Batman's mission as sleet was of Gotham's winter. Some part of his mind noted that the auto shotgun had blown the wooden fence beside the truck to splinters. The weapon had tremendous kick, wasn't something anyone but a strong, well-planted man could aim effectively, and the terrified red-haired thug was staggering. As the gunman tried to bring the weapon to bear, Batman spun on his left foot and kicked out with his right. Kevlar-reinforced boot striking the gun muzzle upward, Batman knocked the top of the breech into the gunman's face. The gun spun from his fingers. The Dark Knight was already spinning to chop down with his left-handed Sancho, who was bringing a .45 to bear. The blow struck the skinny gangster's hand just behind his thumb, breaking a small bone and knocking the gun to the ground. Batman's right fist connected with Red's chin in an uppercut, but Red was flailing backward from getting the gun knocked into his face, and the blow didn't connect solidly.
My hand!
Clutching his hand, Sancho turned to run. Batman's left hand, as if moving on its own initiative, had already plucked a batarang from his belt. Sometimes during a fight, it seemed to Batman that other people were moving in slow motion. Perception of time was subjective to your personal rate of movement, to your capacity for absorbing detail, and to your adrenaline. A bullet struck his chest armor, making him take a step back to keep his balance, and at the same moment he caught the muzzle flash. Someone shooting from the corner of that wharf building. Panicky shooting. That would be Skeeve. Lucky he didn't catch one in the teeth. Bruce Wayne would have had to spend a lot of time in dental surgery. It was 30 yards to the shooter, just at the end of effective batarang range, but Batman took 3 bat-shaped shuriken from his gauntlet. He flicked the throwing stars toward the muzzle flash while ducking back behind the rear of the truck. Doing 2, 3, sometimes 4 things at once was an absolutely necessary skill for nearly every mission. Batman could see that Sancho was down, out cold, but the red-headed guy who'd driven the truck had taken advantage of Batman's distraction to run around the corner of the building. The gunfire had drawn the cops, as the smell of blood draws sharks. Batman didn't like to work with the police around. Technically, he was a vigilante, and some of Gotham's finest were taking bribes. They knew the underworld had a price on Batman's head. Besides, cops brought an additional element of chaos to the mission. Batman liked to stay in control. His instinct said that Skeeve wasn't badly hurt, so he was left with a choice. Pursue Red or go after Skeeve. Probably didn't have time to pursue both men and get what he needed from the crime scene. The truck had an out-of-state license plate, Pennsylvania. Interesting. Skeeve was a local boss. Batman jumped into the back of the truck, shining a light from his utility belt. Nothing but the crates of weapons. An object had fallen into a crevice under the passenger cab. He pulled it out, expanded a sample bag from his utility belt, and stuck the object in. He jumped from the back of the truck, picked up the weapon Red had dropped, and set out after Skeeve, seconds before the cops arrived. Batman slipped around the corner of a boathouse beside the river, just as the first cruisers pulled up at the back of Rankin's fish depot. He ran along the wharf, pressing a stud in his gauntlet that would summon the Batmobile. Skeeve wasn't hard to follow. There was a spotty trail of blood. Chances were the shuriken hadn't hurt him badly, but they'd scared him into giving up the fusillade. The trail led to a crumbling old dock, a gold-speckled wooden ladder, and a big abandoned chunk of concrete embedded with rusty iron that someone had used for an anchor. Skeeve was in a motorboat at the bottom of the ladder, frantically trying to start the engine, a 9mm pistol in his free hand. Unmoored now, the boat drifted just under the ladder.
Good to catch up with you again, Skeeve.
Batman leaned the auto shotgun on a post.
The Bat!
Batman didn't bother to dodge aside. Long before Skeeve was ready to pull the trigger, Batman could see that the pistol was aimed too high and to his left. The bullets went by, a good 2 feet off target. Skeeve was too out of it to know how badly he was shooting, and Batman pretended to catch one of the bullets in his hand. Aware that Skeeve was in a state of superstitious terror, he pretended to look at the bullet in the palm of his black glove, though there was nothing there.
A 9er, I see. Too heavy for you, Skeeve. You'd shoot straighter with a .22 caliber.
You ain't...
Human? You'll find out if you don't tell me what I need to know.
The Batmobile was approaching the foot of the dock. The cops were looking toward it. They'd heard the gunshots.
Where'd the fancy shotguns come from?
I don't...
For just a moment, looking into Skeeve's terrified eyes, Batman felt a kind of disorientation, a disconnection from the mission. For a moment, he felt that he was Skeeve, looking up at Batman, a terrifying figure in black and gray, a personification of violence in a sinister cowl. Batman clenched his fists, bringing himself back to the mission. Strange, though. That lapse in confidence, that doubt about his approach, had never happened to him before. He forced himself back on task.
Skeeve, am I going to have to come down there to that boat? Just the two of us down there?
No!
Then tell me who shipped the guns here.
It's the Big White! It's White Eyes himself! I don't know where he is. He just sends them for the Brotherhood. I don't know nothing else.
Skeeve dropped his gun, turned back to the motor, tried to start it again, his hand shaking. Drugs, maybe, Batman decided. Skeeve was low level, probably telling the truth. The cops were coming over here.
That's a Briggs & Stratton 4-stroke, Skeeve.
Batman ran the magnetized thumb of his right hand over the remote steering control screen on his gauntlet, turning the Batmobile toward the river.
You need to twist that throttle you want the boat to go.
He straightened up.
Or you could ride the boat straight down to the bottom of the river.
And he pushed the old concrete anchor with his boot so it fell directly into the wooden boat, smashing through the bottom.
Oh, shit!
As the boat began to sink, Ski flailed for the ladder and missed. Batman tapped another stud on his gauntlet. The coded combination told the Batmobile to track him and meet him with close timing.
Hey, you in the cape? Damn it! Don't you move! Please!
Batman spread his hands, clasping his cape in a small, ironic gesture of regret, then turned, sweeping up the auto shotgun as he went, sprinted to the edge of the dock about 30 feet away, and jumped off.
Shit! Where's my flashlight? He's gonna drown in there with all that gear on!
There's a guy trying to climb up the ladder here. Hey, it's Skeeve Skevin. We've been looking for you, Skeeve.
Batman had landed directly onto the back of the Batmobile, which had gone into amphibious mode on striking the water. It sped off down the river, sending up a fantail of ichorous water behind it.
Holy shit! I've never seen that before.
Batman ran forward to the Batmobile's now open cab, dropped in, and took the wheel. Its sensors recognized the touch of his gauntlet, and the wheel responded. He put the amphibious vehicle into high gear and rocketed across the river to a boat launch ramp on the opposite shore, up the concrete ramp, onto the streets, and away toward the country roads that led to Wayne Manor. A shame the red-haired one had gotten away. He'd have to fire up the computer, look at some computer mugshots, see if he could ID him.
I did it. I did it. I got away from the bat. Oh, man. I thought I was a goner when he kicked the gun from my hand. I owe one to that speed freak, Skeeve. But hey, the bat wasn't so tough. I saw him stagger when that bullet hit him. Kevlar. Yeah, just a man in a costume. I don't have to be scared of him. Oh, God. Please don't let him find me.
And how did you know, Master Bruce, that there was contraband in the back of that lorry?
Alfred Pennyworth set a silver tea service down at Bruce Wayne's elbow. Alfred had bandaged the wound on Bruce's upper arm, but the double cut had been deep enough that it throbbed as Bruce worked. Now he sat shirtless in the chilly spaces of the Batcave Command Center. He was a sturdily handsome black-haired man with brawny shoulders, chest and arms bulked by muscle. Not exaggerated Mr. Universe muscle, but impressive. He still wore the lower part of his costume and his gloves. The command center was directly under the sprawling old Wayne Manor. Close at hand were racks of spare costumes, grappling devices, throwing weapons, and the entrance to a gallery of chambers containing the Batmobile and other aptly designed vehicles, highly customized motorcycles, and even planes, like the new VTOL stealth jet.
Oh, I didn't know what he was up to.
Bruce studied the image in his mugshot program. He typed his subject's characteristics into its search engine, and it had given him a probable ID on the one who'd gotten away. The truck's driver was likely Douglas Red Trask, 3-time loser for carjacking, armed robbery, amphetamine dealing.
I was watching from the roof of an apartment building on Winslow, and I noticed a truck at almost 3 a.m., driving in a way that suggested someone was trying to lose a tail.
Did you say he was trying to lose a tail, sir? Is this an allusion to his evolutionary status?
Eyebrows lifted, Bruce glanced at the older man. Alfred smoothed his small gray mustache with a forefinger.
I was speaking facetiously, sir. In actual fact, I recall the expression, lose a tail, from a novel by Mr. Raymond Chandler. Your quarry was trying to elude pursuit.
Bruce smiled, glad that his friend was there. The mission could be achingly lonely at times. Alfred Pennyworth was his only confidant.
More likely, he was worried he might be followed, so he was taking precautions. Lots of pointless turns. I took a shortcut across the rooftops, followed him to Crime Alley, Simpson Street. And when a guy with a record of grand theft cracks open crates full of automatic weapons at almost 3:30 in the morning, it's a good bet those guns are illegal.
Alfred had inspected the auto shotgun himself.
Illegal, they certainly are. The weapon is completely unregistered, and in violation of nearly every gun control law in the books.
Bruce nodded, glancing thoughtfully at his cowl. It stood like a knight's helmet beside the flechette-torn cape on an examination table nearby. The cowl stared sightlessly back at him, above Batman's armored cuirass, which leaned against the leg of the table. The empty cowl, the cape drooping off the edge of the table, the chest armor with its bat insignia, glossy black against flat black, all of it together was like a Batman ghost watching him, waiting for its moment. When Bruce Wayne put on Batman's cowl, he became Batman. He underwent a psychological transformation. He deliberately cultivated that changeability in himself. Just now, he was simply Bruce Wayne. Not the Bruce Wayne the world knew, the head of Wayne Enterprises, the feckless playboy. He was Bruce Wayne the planner, the researcher, the detective. Curious to think that Batman, a man in a mask, was somehow more real than the Bruce Wayne known to the world. In a way, Bruce Wayne, billionaire playboy, was his real mask. The exquisite china cup looked absurdly small and delicate in his gauntleted hands. Bruce moved his computer's mouse, activating the soil analysis program to see the results on the dirt scraped from the object he'd found in the truck.
Silver, copper, iron. Traces of sulfides and tellurides. The sort of clay that may also bear gold flakes.
Indeed, Master Bruce. And the object itself?
Bruce picked up the object from a specimen table beside his computer. It was a small circle of aluminum from which extended 3 equally spaced rods of some other gray metal, converging in a smaller circle, the outline of a truncated cone.
It's quite enigmatic. It might be anything.
Actually, it's very distinctive. It's a dredge nozzle, Alfred, used in amateur gold prospecting. Combined with the ore sample, it suggests that the truck was used, not long ago, by someone prospecting for gold.
Do people still engage in individual prospecting, sir? I had supposed it was all done by multinational mineral rights concerns.
Gold prospecting's never disappeared in this country. There's a whole cottage industry supplying prospectors. They use metal detectors, handheld dredges, magnets to separate iron flakes from gold, all kinds of things. People do it in the mountains, but which mountains? The soil sample could come from the Rockies, the Ozarks, maybe the Cascades.
Still, would it be a clue suitable for a detective?
It is, Alfred. I'm going to follow up on it. Skeeve mentioned someone he called the Big White, a.k.a. White Eyes. I've heard rumors he's the head of something called the Brotherhood. If that's the Bavarian Brotherhood, I can tie them into at least 2 execution-style murders in the last year.
And I take it this Brotherhood is not a monkish organization, sir?
Hardly. They're white supremacists, part of the so-called Christian identity tradition. They've nothing to do with legitimate Christians, of course. They're caught up in a fantasy about a Zionist conspiracy, at the United Nations, under the control of the Antichrist, taking over the United States. Various domestic terrorists and racist militias have more or less the same notion.
I have read of them. Some think they're making alliances with Muslim extremists.
It's possible. Both groups are anti-Semitic. Disastrous if domestic terrorists work with international terrorists.
So you'll head for the mountains to investigate this gold mining connection, sir?
Don't know yet which mountains.
Bruce carefully put the cup down. Alfred would have given him his iciest look had he damaged the heirloom. He got up from his seat and strolled over to the big swath of window screen edging the natural dais of rock that separated his command center from the great stalactite-dripping cavern of the Batcave. Bats swooped and twittered beyond the cave, coming in during the pre-dawn, stirring the air with the musty aroma of bat guano. Bruce and Alfred were quite used to the smell by now.
So I'll be looking in Gotham City first. The Brotherhood seems to be active here. I need to know exactly what those guns were for, and then where they're from. Was there a hallmark on that gun?
No, Master Bruce. No maker's mark of any kind. Your weapons design scanner came up empty as well. No known gunsmith or professional manufacturer.
That was my impression. Not a single part seems factory-made. They've been machine-shopped somewhere privately. Very privately.
Bruce shook his head ruefully. This was ominous. Who was designing and secretly constructing such elaborate weapons? And to what purpose? There was a fluttering at the mesh. Then the flutterer clung to it.
Alfred, a friend is here.
A medium-large brown bat was gripping the mesh of the screen with tiny claws, his furry, reddish-brown belly pressed to it, his wings spread out, his muzzle poking through the little feeding gap Alfred had made in the mesh. Bruce knew this bat by the slight hole in his left wing, near the bony peak that ended in a claw.
Same bat we fed all week. He seems to know us. Has that same hole in his wing. I came home with holes in my wings too, little guy. Strange to think as a kid I was afraid of bats.
He reached through the feeding gap and scratched the bat under his furry jaw.
How could I be afraid of this little fella?
Alfred came over with a jar he kept for bat feeding.
Ah, yes, our Eptesicus fuscus, or simply the big brown bat. You know, this species isn't common here in the cave. They've joined our northern long-eared bats, which, as you know, are Myotis septentrionalis.
I was just going to mention that.
I believe the presence of Eptesicus fuscus in the cave indicates cold weather coming. They only take to deep caves at such times.
He handed the jar to Bruce, like an adult letting a child feed an animal at the petting zoo.
Bats, as you know, are not flying rodents, as people suppose. They're in a family more closely related to primates. They're closer to us than they are to rodents.
I know. The rats are on the street.
Bruce pinched a mosquito from the jar to feed to his provisional pet.
What a shame it is that so many bats are killed by pesticides intended for insects, when bats are far more effective at controlling pests than insecticides. Do you know how many tons of mosquitoes they eat per day, Master Bruce?
I think I may catch a few hours' sleep, Alfred. I wonder if you could turn down the bed?
Though he had a deep affection for his butler, really his most important employee, factotum, and best friend, he knew that once he started, Alfred could pontificate for an hour on any subject dear to his heart. Alfred sometimes gave in to a nostalgia for the years when Bruce was a little boy, the survivor of his parents' murders outside the theater, and Alfred had been a surrogate father, in charge of Bruce's education as well as care and feeding.
Master Bruce, the bed has been turned down for hours, just in case anyone in the house should feel the need for a normal, sensible, restorative night's sleep.
Bruce nodded distantly, feeding another mosquito into the bat's small, needle-toothed muzzle. Its little gem-like eyes glittered as it tilted its head.
Keep an eye on the cave, little guy. I'm gonna roost a while.
Gotham City PD Detective Cormac Sullivan, sipping rancid coffee at the workstation of his cluttered Precinct 1 cubicle, was finding it difficult to focus on the big case that had landed in his lap. He had a truck full of auto shotguns and illegal weapons design that no one had known about till the night before. He had rumors of other radically designed weapons hitting the street. He had the Bavarian Brotherhood dealing speed and hot guns and getting into street wars with black gangs. Add to the mix the interesting complication that was the Batman. All of this normally would consume his attention so thoroughly he'd forget to eat. But all Cormac could think of right now was his teenage son, Gary. He should never have left the kid in L.A. with Rosamond. His ex-wife had seemed to be cleaning up her act, and after 12 years as a freelance detective, bodyguard, and skip tracer, Cormac had decided he needed the financial stability of the job offer with the GCPD. Alimony was a bitch, and to pay it and the child support, he needed a more consistent paycheck than he got working freelance. Looking at the photo on the wall of him and Gary together, Cormac took out his cell phone.
Hello?
Rose, Cormac. The boy there?
Gary? He's not back. I haven't heard from him. He's gone.
Cormac's heart sank.
You okay?
I'm as good as I'm gonna be. Like you care if I'm okay. You're the one who left, not me.
You were loaded all the time.
You didn't care. You just blew me off when I was having problems.
Rose, I tried for years. More than 10.
Now Gary's left me too. Now it's just me and the little orange ovals. Me and the ovals. Gary's gone and
You know where he went to?
Almost 4 years you're over there in Gotham City. You see the kid only every couple months. Now all of a sudden it's, where's Gary? Where's Gary?
I wanted custody of him so he could see me all the time. You wouldn't give me custody.
Kid needs his mama.
Mama needs child support, you mean?
He shouldn't get into it with her this way, he knew. But she knew how to get under his skin.
Hey, kiss my ass. You're the one who left.
Gets busted for tagging, drinking.
You don't tell me for months. I have to find out.
He hasn't got a father. What else is he gonna do? He'll spray his name on buildings. He'll drink some hooch. Yeah, he stole some of my pills, too, if you want to know. You're the one
You
who...
already said that 3 times. Where's the kid? You must have some clue. You looked for him?
I don't know, Cormac. He's probably in Venice or Santa Monica. He's got friends in Venice Beach, but I don't know where exactly. I'm not gonna go snooping in those places. Scary places the kid goes. No way.
You call Murchison? I gave you his number, said I'd pay.
I don't want to send your sleazy bounty hunter friends after my son. The kid'll come back when he's hungry, like a damn house cat.
If he's...
Cormac didn't want to say it. If he's not dead.
Where's my check?
I sent it already. Try getting up off the sofa and looking in the mailbox.
Cormac shook his head. The boy's resentment over the breakup, and maybe over his mother's erratic behavior, had erupted into some serious acting out. 3 misdemeanor busts already. 1 for pot, 1 for underage drinking, 1 for vandalism. Worse, Cormac himself had found a bottle of meth in the kid's bedroom when he'd come to pick him up in L.A. Left there by another kid, Gary claimed. Cormac wanted to believe that story. He didn't want to think that his son was becoming a full-blown drug addict. He knew the stats. Some drug use was down in some places, but crystal meth use was up across the board. GCPD routinely had to arrest paranoid kids, psychotic after a week without sleep. Sometimes, instead of having to arrest them, they had to scoop what was left of them from cars wrapped around streetlight poles. Captain Gordon had personally supervised the bust of one speed lab. Batman had left broken bones and smashed equipment at another. Groaning speed dealers eager to confess. But even Batman couldn't stem the tide of the toxic white powder. It was all over Gotham, and it was all over L.A., and Gary had disappeared.
Detective Sullivan?
Startled, Cormac looked up to see Gordon standing at the entrance to his cubicle.
Captain? Cormac's only 2 syllables, you know.
Cormac, then. How you doing? You're gonna spill that coffee.
Gordon was a medium-sized man in an off-the-rack dark blue suit with a perpetually serious expression, dark eyes, sandy hair, and a mustache showing some gray. Looked more like an accountant than a cop. But Cormac had heard that Gordon had knocked more than one gangster out cold, with his fists alone.
Oh, yeah. I'm okay, Captain. I was thinking about that pile of hardware we lucked onto.
Wasn't exactly luck. He busted that one open for us.
Cormac knew who Gordon meant by he. Gordon rarely used the B word around the precinct. He knew that the chief and the mayor frowned on the Bat. Cormac himself had mixed feelings about Batman. On the one hand, Cormac had been something close to a vigilante himself, working as a skip tracer, chasing down guys who'd skipped on their bail out in L.A. You could do some good working around the edges of the law. And Batman had done a lot of good in the year and a half or so he'd been flapping his cape over the rooftops. On the other hand, Batman was technically a criminal, guilty of breaking and entering, never had a warrant when he broke in on a criminal, assault. You couldn't say that every time he'd knocked around a punk he was stopping a crime. Lots of times it was just interrogation, driving an illegal vehicle, and there was probably more. Hell, there were laws against vigilantism itself.
Yeah, about him, Captain. You ever wonder how sane a guy is who dresses the way he does and does the things he does? Night after night?
Sure, I wondered that. But this is an insane world. People adapt. And the guy's got a mission. Hell, he is his mission.
Cormac could see that Gordon wasn't objective where Batman was concerned. But then, if you stayed too cool-headed, did you get anything done?
So, Cormac, any luck tracing those guns?
Nah, Captain. The lackeys we picked up with the guns didn't know where they came from. Truck's driver got away.
Who's the truck registered to?
License plate was stolen from another vehicle about a week ago.
We've still got Skeeve.
Skeeve is out of his mind, incoherent. I can't make head or tail of his transcript.
Somebody try to get a maker on those guns?
Brought in 2 ordnance experts. Best they can tell us is that the weapons were made in a private machine shop somewhere. There's not a single mass-produced part. I figure they did it that way to cover their tracks.
Gordon nodded. He looked around the cubicle, shook his head.
Whoever invented office cubicles should get about 10 to 20 years in one, with no possibility of parole. They used to give us an office. Not a big one, but...
He shrugged and looked at the picture, several years outdated, of Cormac and Gary pinned to the wall. Cormac holding up a couple of trout on a fishing line. Gary offering up a frozen, ironic smile. Typical teenage disdain. But it was still the best photo of Gary that Cormac had. The kid hadn't smiled for the cameras since then.
That, your boy?
Cormac felt a lump in his throat. His boy.
Yeah, that's Gary. He's out in L.A. Once this case is over, I'm gonna need some time to go see him.
Sure. What if we go see Skeeve again? He's had all night to come down. Might have something to say to us now.
After flopping around in the jail cell bunk in a clammy sweat, Skeeve had finally slept, with the meth wearing off, and only the maddening clamor of a cell block could have awakened him.
God damn them, why couldn't they keep their mouths shut?
He felt like somebody had opened up his belly and torn out his guts and sewed him back up again, and for some stupid reason he was still alive. He felt that hollow, and he felt that dead, and he wished it was real death. But then again, when he thought about death, he curled up like a fetus and gnawed on his knuckle.
No, I have to hang on. Don't let him kill you. Don't let him kill you, man.
He wanted to die, and he was terrified of death at once. That was a speed crash, all right. It made clinical depression seem like something you could hope for someday. He put a shaking hand on his head and sat up. On and on like that. Demons, Skeeve figured. They were all demons, working for the Antichrist, trying to torture him. He should have listened to White Eyes. He should have been careful. He should never have...
The bat! The bat!
He saw the bat in his mind's eye, a dark horned silhouette against the sky, spreading death-colored wings to soar down at him, coming to get him. He covered his eyes.
Cut it out! Cut it out! God damn you, man! The bat's not here now. Get it straight. He's not coming in here. You're safe from him.
That's right.
Two men stood on the other side of the bars, both of them plainclothes cops, gold badges clipped to their belts. They'd stepped up while his eyes were covered.
You're safe from the bat here, and from the big white. We can protect you, Skeeve, but you gotta help us too. Who knows what kind of deal we could cut if you help us out.
The cell block had gotten eerily quiet with these two big cops in here. The quiet made Skeeve almost as nervous as the noise.
That's right. You could cut yourself a sweet deal. Or it could get ugly.
This came from the big cop, who had a scar on one cheek, his hair cut in a flat top. Looked like he might be half black. Shirt sleeves rolled up, Navy SEALs tattoo on his arm. Skeeve knew not to screw with that one.
I'm crashing bad, man. Can you get me something, to make me feel better?
We can't get you any speed.
Skeeve remembered who this cop was from the TV news. A big shot cop, name of Gordon.
But we can't get you rehab. Maybe they'll give you some Valium for a while. Help you through it.
Yeah, Valium.
Valium sounded like heaven right then. His nerves were trying to crawl out through his pores.
Maybe, I don't know.
We need to know where the goods you brought in were made. We're pretty sure it's White Eyes people, but we need details. And testimony.
I don't know. I can't, but maybe.
Maybe is a start. You think about it. I'm Captain Gordon. This is Detective Sullivan. I'm gonna leave word here that if you want to talk to us, they're to get in touch with one of us right away.
But Skeeve was staring past Gordon at a cop he had seen at Brotherhood meetings. Breen, the cop who worked with the guards for Precinct 1. Red-faced guy, receding white hair, swag belly bursting his uniform shirt, stubby fingers, the nails chewed to hell, toying with his little walkie-talkie as he stared warningly at Skeeve. Skeeve had forgotten the bastard was here, and he was on the Big White's payroll, too.
Everything okay here, Captain?
Yeah. We're gonna leave Mr. Skevin here to think a while.
Gordon nodded to Sullivan, and they started out.
Wait, Captain, I didn't mean it. I can't.
Just think about it, Skeeve.
Then the two men went through the door at the end of the cell block, leaving Skeeve alone with Breen.
I swear, Breen, I didn't...
Shut up. Just keep your mouth shut right now.
And he walked out after the other two.
Hey! What are you bastards waiting for? I want my damn breakfast!
Bruce Wayne, in Wayne Manor's gym, was doing his 8th set of bench press reps. He had increased the bench weight to 300 pounds, and it was feeling like he couldn't do a 7th set without tearing something. Sweat dripped from his forehead, burned his eyes. His muscles hurt like a son of a bitch. And that was good. Serious workout pain, short of snapping a tendon, was Batman's friend. It meant he was pushing the envelope, reaching the absolute outer limit of his endurance, and going beyond. He had to attempt the impossible, because the job was impossible. It was him versus every criminal predator in the world, starting with the vast underworld in Gotham City. Alfred, wearing purple workout togs, though his only workout was a brisk walk twice a day, was spotting for Bruce, his fingers hovering nervously over the free weight bar, ready to direct it back on the stand if Bruce's muscles should suddenly fail. But Bruce Wayne, Batman, would tear a muscle before he'd fail to finish a rep. The clock on the wall said 5 p.m. He'd do some leg lifts, some gymnastics, try to get that backflip perfected, have to put the costume on for the gymnastics so the body weight would be right, and then rest 40 minutes or so in the jacuzzi while he took care of some Wayne Foundation business on the phone.
You had a call about the Wayne Foundation's charity ball, Master Bruce.
Which charity?
Something about free counseling to help prostitutes, sir.
Oh, yes. One of our new ones. Good charity, but I don't think I'll make it. I want to start patrol early tonight. The mayor will be at the charity ball and the governor. Maybe an actor or two. They'll do very well without me.
As you like, sir. I took the liberty of mentioning the event to a lady who called for you. She said she knew you from overseas. She thought she might attend the ball.
What lady? I'm not interested in any dates, Alfred. I'm much too busy right now. When I need to put up the Playboy veneer again, I'll call, I don't know, someone. Delia or Angelina.
Very good, sir. If Taya calls again, I'll tell her you're not at home.
Did you say Taya?
Shall I make an appointment for you with a hearing specialist, sir?
Taya? It can't be. Alfred, I'm going to finish my workout. Lay out my best tuxedo. I'm going to the ball.
We gotta get Darky out of here.
Breen and Van Wyman, the only Gotham City jail guards in the Brotherhood, were standing just outside the door to the cell block, looking through the mesh window at Cecil Wilson, the brawny blackguard who had just finished giving out the evening meals.
Wilson will report everything, starting with an unauthorized visit.
Van Wyman was pale and tall and big-nosed, with big sleepy brown eyes.
I'll get him out of there. Keep him busy. Hey, Wilson. You got a family call. Some kind of emergency.
What kind?
I don't know. They said, come right on home. Don't even bother to call. I'll cover for you here, man.
I'm coming.
Wilson almost ran up the hallway, pushed through the door, and ran past them toward the locker room. Just in time, too, because Breen's beeper went off. The man himself was here. Skeeve was pacing back and forth, 3 steps this way, 3 steps back, the diagonal length of his cell. When he walked toward the back of the cell, he was pretty sure he wanted to tell the cops to go to hell. When he walked to the front, he wanted to make a deal with Gordon, because then he thought about all the time he'd do with his record. He thought about how badly he needed to get away from the booth. He thought about the street, and the Brotherhood, and what they might do to him anyway.
Back at your cell, cops go to hell. Back the other way, maybe I'll play. Back at the cell, cops go to hell. Turn the other way, maybe I'll play. Back at the cell.
Hello, Skeeve.
Skeeve froze, feeling like he was trying to swallow a golf ball, as he stared at the enormous man standing on the other side of the bars. He had seen him in person only one other time, at the Brotherhood Hall up on Hatchet Mountain. Up this close, he looked even bigger. The Big White. It was all muscle, too. White Eyes was so big, he didn't quite fit into that charcoal-colored suit. The cloth strained at the seams. He was tanned, contrasting sharply with his eyes and eyebrows. The brows and his flat-top hair were flaxen. His eyes so gray, they were almost lost in the whites. You had to watch a long time to see them blink. His lips were almost non-existent. His mouth just a wide line in his face, above that lantern jaw. His left ear was mostly missing. There were stories about that. Some said cancer. Some said a grizzly. Some said a junkie with a machete. But you should have seen the junkie when White Eyes got done. On the middle finger of both of his side-of-ham fists was a big silver ring. They were identical rings, each with an iron cross cut into it.
Open it, Van Wyman.
Van Wyman was there too, but Skeeve hadn't even noticed him. You wouldn't take much notice of those little asteroids when you were staring up close at Jupiter. Breen unlocked the jail cell door, and White Eyes slipped in, moving all that bulk with no wasted motion. Skeeve took a step back.
Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
Don't you back off from me. That is not what a white man does. A white man does not back away.
No, sir.
You have shown many errors in judgment, Skeeve. First, the temptation to use the product. I've told my people about that. Only the Supreme may use enhancements. You used amphetamines. Not good. Second, you ran from a homosexual lunatic. He wears tights and a cape. The man is a homosexual for certain, Skeeve. And there are indications of great wealth about him. That car of his suggests as much. Therefore, he is in all probability a Jew, stealing money from the hard-working white man. Yet you ran from him.
It took Skeeve a moment to realize that White Eyes meant the bat.
Oh, sir, he's no human being. He works for the Antichrist. He's a demon is what he is. I seen it. You didn't see him up close, sir.
We could have merely punished you for snorting up our product and running from that faggot Jew in the tights, and then forgiven you. But you committed a third crime. You buckled for the slaves of the Antichrist. You were going to tell them everything, weren't you, Skeeve?
No, sir. No.
White Eyes went from dead still out of reach to standing over Skeeve with his hand around his throat, all in a flicker of an instant. Skeeve felt himself lifted off his feet, as if by a jib crane, but it was White Eyes' right hand lifting Skeeve, who was a big man himself, right off his feet, squeezing, not seeming to feel it when Skeeve thrashed and clawed and kicked. That implacable grip never wavered, with 241 pounds of man struggling in it, struggling more and more feebly, just looking into those dead gray eyes that never blinked, and trying to scream, and unable to. Fingers trying to pry just one of White Eyes' fingers loose. Just one. If he could just pry a thumb away. A buzzing black darkness, like a swarm of jet bees, seemed to emerge from those flat, unblinking gray eyes. And the buzzing filled Skeeve's ears, filled all the world. But for an instant, just before he died, Skeeve felt a strange gratitude to White Eyes, who was, after all, setting him free. Captain Gordon was thinking of calling his wife, telling her he'd be late again, wondering how he'd justify it to her this time. He forgot all about it when the cell phone rang. Not his personal cell phone, a special one. It had been simply left on his desk one day, in an envelope that also contained a piece of paper showing the bat insignia. The rooftop bat signal wasn't always practical. He'd satisfied himself that the cell phone was untraceable. As Gordon drew the small black cell phone from his inside coat pocket, he glanced at the open door of his office. With all that noise in the precinct station, and no one around, he didn't think it necessary to close the door. But just in case, he rolled his chair over to it, pushed with his foot, then turned his back to it, so that he failed to see, as he spoke on the special cell phone to Batman, that the office door didn't quite fully close.
You there?
I'm here. You make a deal with Skeeve?
Tried. Gonna be hard to make a deal with him now. I just got word he hung himself in his jail cell. We've got safeguards, not sure how he's supposed to pull that off.
Any other prisoners see him die?
No, his cell faces a blank wall.
Coroner's report?
Not yet. Awkward coroner's reports have a way of getting lost around here.
You think the Brotherhood has infiltrated the department?
I don't know. I know we have some dirty cops I haven't been able to get internal affairs interested in. I did get a tip there may be another gun delivery in the alley tonight, this time in the old Drago building. Sometime after 1 in the morning. I'll have some trusted guys on it, but I don't want them too close too soon. If we are infiltrated, word would get out.
I understand. I'll be there in advance.
Thanks. Listen, I was wondering maybe we could talk about... Hello? Right.
Bruce had lifted the cowl from his head to put it away after his costumed gymnastics exercise when a flicker of motion, a dark ripple in his peripheral vision, made him turn to stare into the cave's primal darkness beyond the window screen. Bats, he supposed. But then again, it was now after dark. He had already heard the voluminous whirring of their thousands of wings as they'd flocked to the entrances and out into the countryside to hunt. The motion had seemed very human. He put the cowl back on, in case someone should be there, some wayward spelunker perhaps, and stalked over to the screens, looking out into the caves. Thought he saw a shape move there. Then it was gone. He kept watching, but saw nothing more. He moved to the surveillance panels. All lights were green, and when he flicked the monitors through the various views, the infrared camera showed no one. There were only the stalactites and a few sleepy bats. None of them was flying. He checked another panel. The motion sensors on the lawns around Wayne Manor were on, and they had detected nothing. The cameras on the ground showed nothing special. A jay hopping from one shrub to another, a raccoon prowling. The motion sensors were sophisticated enough to filter out birds and raccoons. Anything larger would set them off.
Alfred, any indication of intruders, people on the grounds?
No, sir. Shall I check the surveillance panels?
I already have. I'm going to have a quick look. Probably a trick of the light.
Batman went through the door that led out into the Batcave and down the spiral stairs. He stepped to the stone floor, stood motionless in the chilly, damp space. He could feel the vastness of the cavern opening up around him. He smelled guano and minerals. He watched and waited. Saw no one. He slipped deeper into the darkness and found the small night vision goggles he kept in his utility belt. He slipped them on and looked around the cave and saw no one. Wait. There. Up atop that melting ziggurat of stone that led to a stalagmite column. Was there someone? Almost blending with the stalagmite's craggy base? It was a man, wasn't it? In a cape? A man with half a face? And horns? Or was it his costume? An empty Batman costume, standing there, looking eyelessly at him, reminding him of that moment at the dock when he'd seemed to see himself as Skeeve had, more symbol than human being, a threat in the shape of a man. But this wasn't his current costume he was seeing. It was the very first costume he'd made. He and Alfred had sat up, sewing it like a couple of women stitching Halloween costumes for the children. It hadn't survived that first night out intact. It had taken 2 bullet holes and 4 knife slashes. Wasn't that it, standing there without a man in it? He stalked toward the apparition, and almost instantly lost sight of it. Had it vanished? Or had the figure slipped behind the column of rock? He ran to the column and circled it, and found no one, nor any tracks in the thick mat of guano under it. He was quite alone, in the grave-like silence of the cavern.
They fell for it, sir.
Breen was in the penthouse suite in Gotham City's best hotel. Looking out at the dusky city, hands clasped behind him, White Eyes was silhouetted against the sunset-washed plate glass window. He didn't bother to turn around.
It remains to be seen if they fell for it, Breen.
I heard Gordon talking to Batman in his office. He thinks I don't know, but some of us do. He's got a special cell phone the Bat calls him on. The lunatic in the cape will be there tonight, sir. The Bat don't like to leave things unfinished.
We'll see. We'll be waiting for him. Did you arrange for the coroner to see the wrong body? Or should I say, the right body?
I did, sir.
Then we'll divert the centrifugal gun shipment. But we'll have a sample of our new hardware on hand, just so we can test it out on this bat thing. And any uniformed slave of the Antichrist who shows his face there.
Where's the main shipment going, sir?
That's need to know, Breen.
I need to know so as I can try to protect him, sir. We may have to pay off Sergeant Feluca. Burris and Median are ours, of course. They'll cover for us. If we know what to cover.
Very well. The other side of town. An Italian restaurant, Uncle Gnocchi's. We paid some of the Italians to cover us, but best to keep the police out of the way entirely. Interesting. I see a billboard down below advertising a movie about a black Air Force general. Can you imagine? The Jews continue their indoctrination, continue to make their guerrillas appear to be legitimate human beings, even leaders. And no one calls them on it. Though, black leadership is a contradiction in terms.
It is that, sir. Why, this afternoon I was telling Van Wyman that the media is taken over by,
Breen?
Yes, sir?
Shut up, and see that there are only friendly patrols in the vicinity of that restaurant.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
Have you any more intelligence on the Bat Jew?
No, sir. Just that Gordon's tight with him.
We'll eliminate this Batman first, then Gordon, when the time's right.
Yes, sir.
Breen waited, but White Eye said nothing more. Breen shrugged to himself and turned to walk out, reflecting that the great man hadn't even bothered to look at him, not once in the entire conversation. That didn't sit well with Breen, that feeling that he was so far down below White Eyes that he wouldn't even look at him. But, after all, White Eyes would one day be absolute dictator over all the United States. So it was something Breen would just have to get used to. In a place like this, you could pretend for a while that the world was not so bad, that it was about people smiling, dancing around and around. Anyway, you could try to believe it.
Bruce, you look like you're having a good time.
I'm having a great time. Now that you're lighting the place up, Delia. The lights of the Wayne Center ballroom chandelier played over his tuxedo and scintillated in Delia's glittery blue dress. Dancers gyrated across the shining ballroom. I'm just mired in ennui at this thing. Bruce beamed his big, gleaming, carefully constructed Playboy smile at her. He tossed off the champagne. It was actually sparkling apple juice, but he wanted Delia to believe it was champagne, and set it down on the table with a pretend awkwardness. Whoopsie.
I think you'd better dance with me, just so I can whirl you away from the champagne bottles, big guy.
Then, he saw her. Sounds like heaven, Delia. Maybe later. Will you excuse me?
Uh-huh.
He snagged a flute of champagne from a white-jacketed waiter's passing salver. With his free hand, he took Delia's and kissed it, then placed the glass in it. Did it swiftly, but without spilling a drop. He inclined his head, smiling apologetically, and hurried off. Taya was watching him approach across the ballroom floor, smiling faintly. She stood there, very self-possessed and still. So still, he thought of a dark flower in a place no wind could stir. She was much shorter than Delia, her hair glossy black, spilling over her bare golden shoulders and her silken burgundy gown. Her eyes were so brown they were almost black, and the pupils seemed impossibly deep. Her lips were full, her compact body taut and delicate at once. He could detect no makeup on her. The delicacy, he knew, was an illusion. He had seen her break through a brick wall with a single kick.
Bruce, you look well, strong.
You look beautiful. She'd always looked beautiful, even in the simple black pajama-like outfit they'd worn during the training retreat. Only a few such remote training centers admitted women, and she was one of the few women who had qualified.
But there is something.
She pursed her lips, just slightly, and looked at him with her head cocked.
A shadow of something, perhaps, yes? Something bothering you.
2 years since I've seen you, and you act as if we were just parted for an evening. Ready to start up the conversation again.
Oh? What conversation was that?
You were always trying to draw me out.
She had tried to talk to him about his parents. A touchy subject. A painful subject. They drifted over to a refreshment table.
Champagne?
Just some juice. Thank you.
Ah, Taya. It's good to see you. He meant it. He didn't usually drop the Bruce Wayne mask. He was either Bruce Wayne playboy or Bruce Wayne the philanthropist. But he realized in that moment how much he'd missed her. And he let something show through he didn't usually permit anyone to see.
What brings you to Gotham?
I don't like to lie, but I had made one lie up for you. I came to collect donations for the Tibetan Freedom Fund. I know you do, but your friends here don't.
I'll see what I can drum up for you. So, how's your collecting for the fund a lie? You do a lot of work for it.
Yes? But how did you know that? I only started after we went our separate ways.
He didn't want to admit that he'd had her discreetly checked out, just to see if she was all right. I don't know. I heard it somewhere.
I do work for the charity, but it is not approaching from a position of strength to admit this, but I really came to see you. I just felt you needed to talk to someone, and I needed to see you.
She dropped her gaze at that. She was usually so confident. It was a rare thing to see her embarrassed. I missed you, Taya. Would you care to dance?
Oh, I don't know these dances, and you do it so well. Perhaps a walk? There is a garden outside?
Something that passes for one, but you'll brighten it up. Come on. He offered her his arm, and they crossed the ballroom, where he spotted Delia flamboyantly dancing with a star quarterback. He saw her wince as the big guy stepped on her foot. She was careful not to look directly toward Bruce, but he knew she was watching as he and Taya went out an exit into the Wayne Center's sculpture gardens. Abstract sculptures rose from beds of roses, and a fountain burbled, surrounded by birds of paradise. Just felt I needed to talk?
She didn't answer immediately.
That's a pretty good long-distance line you've got to me. Working on telepathy?
Oh, I hear that mocking tone. You are always so skeptical. But there are more things on heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, as your Shakespeare says.
We can't really lay claim to Shakespeare here in America. We've got Poe, however. What you said about a shadow makes me think of Poe's Shadow, a parable. And lo, from among those sable draperies, where the sounds of the song departed, there came forth a dark and undefined shadow.
He felt incongruous reciting prose, the night after knocking people out cold and ducking the cops, but the rest of the line came to his mind. A shadow such as the moon, when low in heaven, might fashion from the figure of a man. But it was the shadow neither of man nor of God, nor of any familiar thing. They stopped beside the fountain.
There is a gloominess in you, a dark place that you try to hide.
Do I? You'd be surprised. Sometimes it comes right out.
And you have been troubled by something.
She reached a hand to catch the spray from the fountain.
I did feel it.
He hesitated. He did want some advice. Her philosophical background might help him. Though Bruce had adopted no specific spiritual tradition, Taya was a practitioner of a variety of Vipassana Buddhism that he could relate to. Like the most ancient Buddhism, it was less a religion than an inner movement toward deeper consciousness, toward less identification with desire. It was about intelligent self-control and inner freedom. He respected her grounding in that tradition, and he suspected that what he'd experienced might be more metaphysical than physical. But he couldn't tell her much about it without revealing that he was Batman. No way he could tell her about the uncharacteristic moment of doubt he'd had gazing down at Skeeve. The thing in the Batcave, though.
I saw something last night, Taya. There's a place underneath the manor. It's dark in there.
A wine cellar?
Close enough. I thought I saw something there. A shape. A visitor where there shouldn't be one. It was as if it was mocking me. I have enemies. It could be they found a way in.
What enemies are those?
Oh, everyone with enough money has enemies. Potentially.
You mean kidnappers? Terrorists?
Could be. These are grim times. Maybe that works in my imagination. I suppose I'm just imagining things.
A dark visitor. There is more than one type of visitor, Bruce.
She looked up at him, her face catching the light, and for a moment he felt the space between them as clearly as he felt his own body.
a space filled with a subtle electricity, with longing.
Perhaps, Bruce, loneliness makes you see things worse than they are. Where I come from, we have the legend of the mountain ghost. He is an evil magic beast who is said to carry children away. Once, at night, when my parents had left me at home, and the wind was crying in the darkness, I thought I saw the mountain ghost skulking along in the shadows coming toward the house. I wanted to know. I had nowhere to run and did not wish to be a little cowering victim. So I picked up a burning stick from the fire and ran toward the creature. And I saw that it was just the stump of an old tree. But in the starlight and the shadows, my mind had made it look just like the mountain ghost. And your parents have been gone too since you were a child. You have no one but Alfred. Perhaps, in a way, what you see is the mountain ghost. And your mountain ghost, too, is a projection of your own mind, Bruce.
Maybe your ghost took a shortcut here, under the mountains. I shouldn't have brought it up. She was gazing at him in a way that made him feel like she was looking right into him. It was a feeling that made him ill at ease, yet he didn't want it to stop.
Bruce, do you remember that night beside the stream?
She put a hand up, and he enfolded it in his own. I remember, Taya. It was spring. There were blue crocuses, soft grass. And it was quiet. There was only the stream and the wind. And a bird was singing. Just one bird in that willow by the stream. And you said he was calling to someone. He just kept calling and calling. And you let me kiss you. He had almost lost himself in her that night. Almost surrendered his heart to her. She raised her face to his now. Almost surrendered to her once again.